Is my brain broke or am I just too literary? We think that we could do so much better. How could you mess it up this bad? It's like there's no one else in the room while you write out of your ass. Is my brain broke or am I just too literary? Am I insane, bro, or am I just too literary? Too literary.
Welcome to We're Too Literary, the show where we identify as experts.
But we're not.
As we deep dive into the world of cinema, uncovering plot holes, dissecting character arcs, laughing at the absurdities, and spoiling the shit out of everything you hold and love dearly. I'm your host, Kenny.
And I'm Jonathan. And each week, we'll take a critical yet humorous look at both the classics and the latest releases. Whether you're a film fanatic or love a good laugh, join us as we navigate the twists and turns of movie magic gone awry and give you our ideas on how we'd like to do it. Are our brains broke?
Or are we just too literary?
Too literary.
Welcome back, everybody, to another wonderful episode of We're Too Literary. This week, we are diving right into what we have been teasing the hell out of it at nearly the end of every episode for the last three, I think.
I'm not even sure at the end. I'm pretty sure throughout episodes, we bring it up just casual references of, hey, we got this coming. Super excited.
Yeah.
You should make sure you get caught up.
Yeah, it's we're going to be talking about The Acolyte. This show that has arguably one of the worst Star Wars ratings on IMDb, which at this point I'll just chalk up. Movie Dex ratings, they don't mean a lot. This show got review bombed into oblivion. And
agreed. Well, and like we kind of talked about it in an episode where I want to say episode 3 or episode 5, like one of them, 2 hours before it even came out, already had like a 2 point something review. Like that's
right.
People intentionally negatively reviewing it before it ever gets released.
Yep.
Which is just
exactly
bullshit.
Right. I agree. The fact that they've been review bombing it the way that they've been doing is just a testament to how mean Star Wars fans are, which we've mentioned a lot.
So fucking mean. So fucking mean. Which is just ridiculous.
This recording, it's got over 104,000 reviews, putting it a whopping 3.9 out of 10. So that just goes to show. But I digress. The ratings don't really matter that much. What matters right now is how we felt about the show.
Agreed.
And how you felt about the show. Listener, viewer.
You just sitting there quietly watching us.
Squirm in my chair.
Like,
yeah.
Squirming. You know, why are they squirming? Are we making them uneasy?
You're squirming. I'm trying to get comfortable. Okay.
Wish you luck with that.
So, The Acolyte. I didn't dislike it. I actually thought that it was a good show. I think that the hate it received was, for whatever reason, just hate for the sake of hate, you know?
Agreed. I mean, I felt like they went too far. I really enjoyed the show. Do I think it's perfect? No. Do I think some of the criticism I've heard about it is factual? Yeah.
And fair.
The writing has been hit or miss. The pacing hasn't been great. I mean, we went into that in our mystery box episode. Like on a mystery box show, which is what this is kind of supposed to be, pacing is critical. You have to deliver enough that it keeps the viewer interested and coming back, but not deliver too much that they get bored and, move on. It's
Agreed.
Kind of difficult to do. There are definitely a lot of greats out there and a lot more misses.
Yeah. I would put this in line with, and again, when it comes to all of the Star Wars shows that have been released in the last 5-6 years, when did Mandalorian pop out? I don't remember what year that was.
Ooh.
Here, I got the movie decks right here.
2018, 2019. It was before COVID, before the big C.
Okay, I thought so. Because, well, was it 2019? You're right. Okay, all right. Huh. For some reason, I thought that. I guess it was the second season that I remember watching in quarantine. So
yes.
Anyway, what I was getting at there is that from the start of like Mandalorian season 1, season 2, those have been great TV. I've thoroughly enjoyed what we've gotten out of the Mandalorian so far. I would put Acolyte closer to that of like the Book of Boba Fett. I enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett, but it was also it was rough storytelling. Like,
agreed. I mean, not to delve into that too much, but I wanted to like the Book of Boba Fett, and I kind of did, but it just felt so unnecessary. Like I don't know. It was very uninteresting, and just, I don't know. Just it meandered. It didn't really tell a cohesive story. And I lost interest by the end of it. I mean, I finished it because I love Star Wars and I will consume all this shit and, enjoy it on varying levels. But yeah, for me, I would rate Book of Boba Fett as the least interesting. It kind of just felt like not a lot happened. And then we had the weird speeder bike gang. The Vespa bike gang.
Yeah, it was pretty much. It was weird. The storytelling was a little bit slow. It was a lot of history of Boba's time on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know. It didn't, like you said, it didn't draw in super well. And so I finished it for the sake of finishing it because I knew there was supposed to be some tie-in, which of course we did finally see towards the very end of the season. But then, yeah. So in the same vein with Acolyte, a lot of what built up felt kind of slow in some ways. The action that they had in this was really good. It was very.
I would argue it's some of the best like lightsaber fights I've seen, and some just really interesting choreography, stuff we hadn't seen before. Some great use of the Force during the fights. I mean, Episode 5 and then Episode 8, just outstanding fights. I thought
they were nuts. They were absolutely nuts. 8 was the final episode, I believe, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, hell, even was it episode 2 when it was when they were dealing with Torben and there was a little bit of lightsaber shenanigans there. And that was, that still felt fun. I still enjoyed it, especially just watching Master Soul dodge left, right, without even like hardly raising his arms. He's just methodically moving around like it's not even a big deal. And I'm just like, this is the coolest. I just love watching every dodge in the world right now with grace and flow that just can't be matched.
Soul was a great fighter. Like, it was magnificent. I loved watching it.
Yeah, it was really good. And that is notably to me the biggest draw to this show was getting to see the action sequences, because the story itself, albeit not a bad one, I felt confused at times. I felt kind of ripped off a little bit. The direction that this took. So when we did the last episode, we covered episodes 1 and 2, right?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. So 3 through 8 is essentially what we're referring to at this point, with some mentions, of course.
Which we'll talk about the kind of salient points that stand out for us that are crucial to what we would do differently.
Right. All right. So not that we need to say this, but as always, spoilers very heavily ahead. So if you haven't finished The Acolyte by this point, finish it. feel the things we felt, and then come back and listen. Okay.
Agreed.
Unless you're ready to be spoiled, in which case, here we go.
Come along for the ride.
All right. So episode 3 was a flashback episode. We get to understand the introduction of May and Osha and the coven,
correct,
the sisters.
And all of this is done through the lens of Osha.
Right. Yep.
So
because
that's where the whole Rashomon aspect of the show comes into play, is this like major event in the twins' life that kind of sets the stage for everything they go through. We're supposed to have seen it through multiple lenses to kind of understand the different perspectives and how unreliable the narrator is.
Yeah.
Which I would say what for me was a pretty big failure. We only see it twice, really. We see it through the lens of Osha in episode 3, and then we see it through Soul's lens
in episode 7.
Yeah, which to me felt less unreliable narrator when that's delivered, and more of like, this is the events of how it happened. I would have liked to have seen more variety on this. Maybe we do like a Osha version and a May version and then a Soul version, but it'd also be really boring to see the same event 3 different times. So you would have had to like kind of break it up and intersplice throughout to make it interesting.
Right. And while I did this is one of the few occasions where the flashback didn't bother me too much. You know, a lot of the times flashbacks in movies, it can be a little bit like, why didn't you just tell us this up front? Why are we having to go back and see it? You know, it feels like we're losing a little bit of the current story that we could be experiencing, rather than, you know, the historical stuff that you could have spoon fed us a little quicker. So seeing it through Soul's lens was helpful because there was additional information that we got. And that really was the biggest thing, in my opinion, between these flashback episodes. Was the first one really did just tell us about Osha and May and why they ended up separated, and what the travesty was that occurred for their home, for their coven. This was the first introduction of what is effectively a reference to later on known as the Night Sisters, right? These witches were not the Night Sisters themselves, but they were a very close reference to what they are.
From what I've read and seen from the creator, they are an analog to Night Sisters. I mean, they are a coven of witches, but no, they have no kind of connection to the Night Sisters. I believe the Night Sisters are already currently active on Dathomir at this point.
Yeah.
Don't know that for a fact, but I believe so.
Like that time during like the Old Republic era? I lost it again. Are we in the High Republic or the Old Republic?
We are in the High Republic.
Okay.
The Old Republic is a shit ton further back.
Yeah. Okay, so there was a couple of things that I didn't parse out in my head correctly, but that's okay. So yeah. All right. I'll just, while you're looking that up, I'll quickly kind of just touch on these. You know, we find out more about May and Osha in episode 3. It's a flashback. We get to see the tragedy that occurs that destroys their home, and they get separated. And essentially, this is where, you know, Osha was brought by Master Soul to the Jedi Temple to become a youngling, a hopeful Jedi. Because, well, as we know, that didn't happen. She didn't actually make it to being just a Padawan.
A Padawan, correct.
Yeah.
I mean, she was a youngling in training. Well, no, she was a Padawan. She never achieved knighthood. Okay. She failed to achieve knighthood, which is, you know, maybe we didn't stress this enough in the mystery box episode, so we'll stress it here. If you're going to have a mystery, it has to be fucking interesting. The reveal has to be interesting. I think it's episode 8. I think it was episode 8 where they reveal why and how she failed. And it's just like, oh, okay.
It was purely because she was too emotional.
Yes.
Right? Which is pretty much the same old story we've gotten in every other dark side tale. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, you have too many emotions.
I know. And that's where I'm like, I don't have an issue that's why she failed. I have an issue that was a mystery for most of the series that they hinted at a couple times. Like, oh, okay. I mean, sure.
And that was the thing. Like, yeah. It wasn't a mystery at any point why she failed the knighthood, because it became very apparent early on that she has a lot of emotions.
Agreed.
And like, that is the same old story that gets told in every dark side tale, is about how this one, has a chance at being a great Jedi. Oh no, you have too many emotions. Oh no, your crystal turned red. Now you're a Sith. Hooray.
Yeah. Correct. Well,
roll credits.
That's where big change for me. One of two options. Either we're just fucking out the door with that much, much earlier. Like, this is why she failed. Or we give her something more interesting, like, a lightsaber practice duel or something goes awry and she, kills somebody. And that just rocks her to her core and she leaves. But I think there is good. I think you can use a trope. Like, yes, they've played out the dark side people turn on the dark side because they can't control their emotions a lot. But it does work from a story standpoint. Just don't make it the mystery. So I think that's what I would do, is much earlier. Maybe episode 2 or 3 is part of that reveal rather than episode fucking 8. Like, get it out the door. Like, it doesn't need to be this thing that hangs over the whole show.
So let me ask you, what was the one mystery out of the whole show that you felt you were caught off guard by?
I mean, the mystery that keeps me coming back, that I'm just like, this is where I want to go, is Qimir.
Yeah.
Like, he is interesting enough, and the way he talks, like, and even with like the way Darth Plagueis shows up, which I don't know if you knew who that was at episode 8.
Okay. I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'm like, I almost wonder if Darth Plagueis still has his master right now and he's looking for an apprentice, whereas Qimir is just a dark side dude doing his own thing. Because generally the Sith have apprentices. So him wanting an acolyte is different than wanting an apprentice. So that's the mystery that I'm really interested in. That's kind of the direction I would definitely be going with this, is Chimir's not a Sith apprentice or a Sith master. He's his own dark side dude who, is a fallen Jedi who just wants to be an evil dick. I mean, hopefully I would give more motivation than that, because that's just boring. But yeah. I see your hand and you're like,
oh no, I've got a whole bunch of thoughts going through my head, but please continue.
Yeah. No, I mean, that to me, that's the interesting mystery. And I think I would have tried to have a little bit more of that. Okay. But truthfully, I think going that direction, I probably would have tried to do it like it was done. We see Darth Plagueis, which most people in the fandom would see and go, oh shit, how does this play in? And I would do Ian Qimir with wanting an acolyte, because unless I just don't know my research enough, Sith have apprentices. So why does he want an acolyte? And yes, he's like, you might call somebody like me a Sith, but he's not calling himself a Sith.
No.
Yeah. That's that key difference, using the words to be like, oh, he might be something new. That's why, like, some of the big theories was he's, the progenitor or the Knights of Ren. Like, that'd be cool.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that one.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So, really, really quickly at this point, because we've already jumped to the end, essentially.
Yes.
Episode 4 was called Day, and it was a very light episode, pretty much about them tracking down the Wookiee Jedi. Help me out.
Yep. Galnaka.
Thank you. And that episode didn't really have a whole lot going on in it. It was just kind of traveling through until they got there. And then May flipped a fucking switch out of the blue and was just like, you know what? My loyalty's with my sister, and screw you, Qimir, because she didn't know at the time who he was yet. And then we flash forward into episode 5, which was absolutely bonkers. And this was the point at which, despite it having one of the coolest battles I've ever seen in Star Wars, it was where the whole thing took a big downturn for me, because they fucking killed everybody, man.
Fucking everybody. But it had to. They had to.
What? Why? Two of them did not need to die.
But here's where I disagree. I think for a couple different reasons, it was important and imperative that they die. One of those is, otherwise you get a little too wishy-washy and trying to like tweak this around. But in Phantom Menace, Kai Adimundi, who's on the council, talks about how the Sith have not been seen in 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this fight has Qimir say, you might call me a Sith. Well, if all these Jedi live and go back to the council, they're going to be like, yeah, this dude calling himself a Sith is out here murdering bitches. Then you become this, make it a lot more difficult to adhere to that prequel movie and do your own thing. So to me, everyone has to die. Otherwise, you have a loose end of, well, he called himself a Sith, and why aren't they saying anything? And why isn't the council then getting involved? And blah, 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 blah. It's a fucking snowball effect.
I hate to say it, but that's literally the first and best explanation of why that needed to happen that I've heard. I've looked into this a bunch, and it was loose ends was not the thing that I would have thought about. Although, that just means like. And that comes to the fact that the Jedi, man, they cover everything up.
This is kind of showing the fallacy of the Jedi Order and how they use kids to become warriors. And like Qimir points it out so succinctly, like, you fucking brought her here.
Yeah, he does. I thought there was maybe there was a little extent of brutality there that I didn't feel was quite necessary. Like, and I mean that specifically with the neck break. That was pushing an envelope that I was like, how are you going to convince me at this point that you're not just straight up evil? And that's the thing, is from that point forward, after the discussion or after the interactions with the Jedi ended, and it was Qimir with Osha now, because Osha and May switch places at the end of episode 5. At that point, he's talking in a way where it's like, you can't trust him, but he's also not talking in a way that makes you go, I want to kill you right now.
Right.
Not yet.
Well, because he's not being cartoonishly evil. He's just being a flawed character who's like, yeah, he did a bunch of evil shit. Don't get me wrong. But is he also defending himself? Would they have taken any opportunity to kill him? I mean, if they disarm him, sure, maybe they don't kill him. But in the middle of a fight, they're going to kill him if given an opportunity.
Yeah. Now, really quickly on the fighting choreography that was involved in episode 5, I just want to say, I don't remember the exact term of the fighting style, but man, it was so cool to finally see it in action. He uses the style of lightsaber fighting that involves turning his blade on and off repeatedly as he moves.
There is a term for that. I forgot what it is, but it is so well done.
It gave me tingles, man. Like, I'm watching it, I was just like, this is the craziest fighting style, and it's so cool. Correct. I wish I remembered the name of it.
Yeah. Well, and then you should do that research while I go to the point of like the cortosis elements, which was just like, I was like, what the fuck is that? And then had to do some research of, oh, this has kind of been around in the Legends material for a while. And it was just excellent watching, him use his body to fight, to be like, I'm using I'm going to headbutt your lightsaber because I know it's going to disable it for, a minute or whatever, and then give me an opportunity to fuck you up.
Which I feel like that was one of the very few times that we've ever seen that happen too. Like, we just don't see that kind of
in live action or in anything outside of Legends books and maybe comics. I don't think cortosis has been seen. So it's been in none of the movies, none of the, TV series like Clone Wars and stuff, as far as I can remember.
Tricata. That was the name of the lightsaber fighting style. It takes advantage of using a unique aspect of the weapon where it can be turned on and off at will. And it allows for much more mobility and being able to just disappear, reappear quickly. Yeah, it's one of the sickest styles I've seen. And
it was excellent.
It's mentioned in books and comics, right? But never seen it in live action. I feel like if there has been one, please let us know, because I've tried to do my research on this one. I'm somebody who considers myself to be pretty familiar with the Star Wars timelines, even though I've definitely screwed it up while we've been recording on more than one occasion.
You don't, know when the new timeline starts, the whole before the Battle of Yavin and after the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah, I know
that which movie that is.
We messed that up big time.
We did. We messed that up pretty hard.
I would the whole time it was Battle of Yavin, and I was thinking of the Battle of Andor. It's like, that doesn't. Those aren't the same.
Those are drastically different.
One of these things is not like the other.
No.
So, all right. So episode 6 was. That was where. Okay, so episode 6 was where Qimir and Osha have a lot of time to get to know each other. And go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's focused on Sol and May on the ship, and Qimir and Osha on the planet. The kind of this honest dialogue, and Qimir is trying to seduce Osha, which apparently was working pretty well.
Yeah,
I mean, not gonna. Darth Bortles was like,
what now?
Darth Bortles. That's what the internet has taken to calling him.
Darth
Bortles.
Bortles?
Yes. From his character on The Good Place.
Oh my God. You've got to be kidding me.
He has no name other than the Stranger or Qimir, so Darth Bortles it is.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll let you all call him that. It just sounds so not serious, and he was such a serious character. So, we get a little bit of character development there. Again, honestly, while the episode wasn't bad, it had good information. It was a little uneventful, a little slow. I think the biggest thing about that episode was that at the end, Osha puts on his mask, right?
Yep.
And it's a sensory deprivation mask. Like you said, it was a cortosis.
Cortosis.
Which is a lesser Beskar, essentially. It's not quite as durable as Beskar.
So cortosis is very brittle or fragile, but it has different properties in Beskar. Beskar is impervious to lightsabers, but cortosis disables lightsabers.
Right.
Big difference there. Like, you can block a lightsaber with Beskar, but it's still on, and you're still going to have to deal with it. Whereas cortosis just breaks it. It like disables it.
Yep.
It's powered off, and it takes a minute for it to come back. So it gives
Right.
you the opportunity of like getting in there and striking, especially since they're not used to it. They're, stunned like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. It was startling every time because they all stopped and were like, and it's sparking off the ends and stuff. And they're just like, huh?
Yeah.
In that moment, you're like, oh, I'm dead because I stopped paying attention. I let my guard down. So yeah, episode 6 wasn't like, there wasn't a lot to mention there. It was just a bit of filling in the holes of things we get to kind of prepare to understand what is about to come in episode 7, which is the flashback again, but this time from Soul's perspective, which I still appreciated this episode mainly for the fact that we got to see all of the Jedi once more. That it was like, if we really didn't, I'm still mad that Indara is just gone, but
Agreed.
the fact that we got to see her a few more times was cool. And I don't know, I still think that her wound was not severe enough for her to be gone. So hopefully she might, just show
Season
up
2.
at some point.
You never know.
You never know. The rest of them, though, like Kelnaka was done, which was sad.
Yes.
I was really hoping to see a little bit more from Kelnaka. Torben was just kind of a bummer, but I also get it. I get the choices. Anyway,
Yeah.
So we get to see the unfolding of what happened from the perspective of Soul, and actually, that was at that point I was like, all right, Soul does have a little bit of a problem. He wants that apprentice so bad
Yes.
that it clouded his judgment something severe. And in truth, a lot of what happened at the Coven was due in part to Soul's actions, right? I don't know that the fire really, like, if I remember right, the fire actually kind of subdued itself a little bit. It didn't actually spread that much. The fire that May set in front of Osha's room, or their room.
No. So it went up pretty well. Like, it fell into the corner and started taking up, and it like moved throughout the whole, foundry.
But was that what caused the rest of the explosion in that one section?
It's implied to be the reason, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because the rest of it was literally just the fight that took place between Soul, Torben, Kelnaka, and the honestly just the mothers. I mean, yes, the other mother collected with the rest of the Coven mentally to control Kelnaka, and frankly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. Like, okay, Indara shows up, grabs Kelnaka's head, tries to force push out all of the control that the witches have on Kelnaka, and then they just died. It was like the release of that control somehow just killed them all at once, and I still
doesn't make sense. I would agree.
I guess I don't know enough about that particular power to say that I know what happens as a repercussion of it being broken.
And I think it could have been better done to like a better visual to give you that feeling that like that feedback pulse from Indar pushing them out kind of broke their brains or something. I don't know. I would agree. It's not well developed why severing that connection kills them. But at the same time, where's also Mother Coral?
Yeah.
Because we never see her body, even though she was part of that.
No, you don't. And I tried to look this one up. I could not find anything that really like gave a clear explanation. So yeah, I really have no idea how that one came to be, but like they all died. And so that was a big part of the problem was, they killed the whole Coven somehow. And the death of Mother Anasea was sad. Her using kind of like force apparition was really cool, But I also didn't expect that a lightsaber to the space she was in was just going to be what it was. And also, why did he think that she was going to hurt May? Because,
Well, I mean, it depends how you look at it. Like, I think he's young and rash, so he made a quick decision. Also, if he knows, May started to like fucking evaporate or something as well in that scene.
Maybe that flashed by fast enough that I didn't notice that she was also. Yeah.
If you watch, she's also starting to get like a little foggy and stuff. So maybe it's that idea that Mother Ansea is doing something, so you gotta stop her.
Okay. Well, yeah. So that pretty much sums up the story of episode 7. That gives us the backstory that we need as far as like why all of those Jedi are on May and soon to be Osha's shit list.
Yeah.
So, and then, all right, need your help with this one more time too. When it came to the end of this episode, we came back to reality, and that was when we got to see Osha with the mask on, still dealing with the sort of like force possession.
That was the opening of episode 8.
That was the opening of 8? Okay. So moving into episode 8, which is called The Acolyte, we open up seeing Osha with the mask on, dealing with what was essentially like kind of like some sort of force possession, dark side force possession, which has been referenced in the past. I'm a little curious to see how that might turn out down the line, because it's been known to like hold some Sith hostage for a long time. I don't have specifics on those Sith, but it is something that they kind of alluded to there, which was interesting because it kind of snaps Qimir into almost an alternate version of the space that they're in. Right? In one moment there's like light and there's things around him, and the next moment it's dark, and he's like trying to help pull her out.
It kind of seems to be a power of this coven, because Mother Ansea did it to Torben, and Osha's doing it to Qimir. Yeah, and it's kind of like locking them in their mind in some fashion. And it's not really like, as it's being presented, force possession. It's more like a version of a Jedi mind trick in some way.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like a visual of that happening. You know, they're kind of going in their heads trying to trick them and stop them. And so we're seeing like a visual version of that. Whereas, you know, in the past, it's like, these are not the droids you're looking for.
Right. Much more basic, much more suggestive. And it also had something to do with like a potential future vision and everything, right? And it was at that point of foreshadowing. It's like, oh, May's going to kill Saul, and we got to stop her. And yeah, that told me pretty much in that moment where things were headed. So a little bit of quick backpedaling to the point earlier about what was the thing that was the most like mysterious to you that caught you off guard when it happened. And I agree. I'm somebody who prides themselves on being able to figure out where a story is going before it gets there. I love doing that. Fun. I keep it to myself because a lot of people don't want to be told exactly where something's going. But I didn't see Qimir being the one behind the mask. I didn't. And when it turned out to be him, I was like, okay.
But episode 4 pretty much just spells it out, like fucking heavy. I mean, Qimir with his kind of questioning May, it's just like looking, I was just like, it has to be him. If it wasn't him, it'd be just so much foreshadowing. It's like, what the fuck was the point of all that? But that's where it was like, we've talked about this before. It was almost too much. So it makes you go, maybe it can't be him, but then it's like, but man, it's so heavy handed. It just has to be. Otherwise you're trying too hard to go in a random direction and it doesn't feel earned. You have to watch episode 4 again. And
maybe I will. I honestly was half expecting it to be Mother Coral because we didn't see her body.
Sure.
You know? Now, granted, I didn't know that until episode 7, right? But
yeah,
I was still pretty convinced that it was going to be Mother Coral, especially since her species is very loosely related to the species that Darth Maul is. And so I was like, another Darth Maul style bad guy. That'll be fun. But no, I was surprised to see that it was Qimir. And then, you know, from everything else that happened, I just felt like all of the other potential mysteries, like they spelled themselves out maybe even more so because, I don't know, not seeing Qimir coming and you seeing Qimir coming. I don't know what happened there. Right. But with the mystery behind like why Osha didn't become a Jedi, obviously it was her emotions. Actually, I don't know. Maybe the biggest twist was the fact that May just suddenly flipped a switch and was like, never mind. Never mind. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done. That might have been the biggest flip of a switch out of all the mysteries that were going on because
sure. It wasn't very well earned.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was just sudden. So seeing Master Soul kind of ending up as the catalyst of all that occurred up to this point and the reason that all of these Jedi were being slowly but surely murdered. I guess what mystery is left is what's Chimir's backstory? What's his connection to Ro, right?
Ro?
Vernestra?
Oh, Vernestra Ro, yes.
Yeah, because we know that he was her apprentice.
Well, yes, because she does outright say that. And there's that scene where it's a direct connection. So, I mean, yes, there is the next mystery for the ongoing seasons would be what happened there, like what drove him from the order. How did he get those wounds? A lot of some breakdowns I've seen and stuff talked about how he's been tortured by her. And I'm like, I don't see that. I mean, I see that they probably got into a fight and that's how he got his back fucked up with her sweet ass lightsaber whip.
Mm-hmm. One of the first introductions of the lightsaber whip in live action. Yeah. That was cool.
Which I was hoping we'd see a battle there with it. I was very disappointed we did not.
Yeah. It murdered one bug, right?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. This like backhanded, like whoosh. It was cool, but I was hoping like she would fight Qimir and we get a little bit of that action. Especially since the show hasn't been reviewed the best. I have concerns it may or may not get a season 2, and I would really like to see this lightsaber witch in action. Especially whoever did the choreography, I think would come up with a fucking fantastic fight scene with this.
So we'll see if this ages well. But because it's a Disney IP now, I fully suspect we'll get a season 2. I don't think out of all of the Star Wars stuff that they've done so far, I don't think they've canceled any of it.
It depends how you look at it. I mean, Obi-Wan hasn't been given like a season 2. I think it was billed as a mini series. Don't remember that for a fact. Book of Boba Fett hasn't gotten a second season.
I also thought that one was supposed to be a mini series.
That I don't remember if it was billed as a miniseries. I don't think it was. And then I mean, Mandalorian has 3 seasons, and I think the season 4 is being made into a movie.
Yeah, it's literally called.
It's like Grogu and Mandalorian or something.
and Grogu. Yeah, Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
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 Let's see.
Ahsoka, I think, has been greenlit for a second season at least. Andor was given a 2-season run right off the bat. So, I mean, that was always going to have 2 seasons. But it's also designed to end after 2 seasons. Season 2 leads directly into Rogue One.
I don't think that The Acolyte is going to get canceled despite the low ratings that it received, because I think that Disney, the folks behind it, are probably going to look at it and go, this just got hated on for the sake of hating on it. Right. Sure. I mean,
okay. And we'll kind of have to wait and see. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for a season 2 with improved writing. The acting was iffy at times, but overall I enjoyed it. I think the show was a solid 7. I said it from the start. I'll say it now. Really? I think it was a solid 7. Wasn't the best, but it was really interesting. There's a lot of things that I would change. I like the mystery box that was presented wasn't well presented, and it wasn't that interesting. And then some of the other stuff, like, Osha's reasoning for not becoming a Jedi Knight and leaving the Order, kind of boring. I mean, boring in the way they revealed it and held on to it like it was some huge secret.
Right.
I mean, I also think that they took some episodes that probably should have been one long episode and broke it into 2. I mean, I think 4 and 5 would have done better as a single episode
instead of day and night. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And they could have filled in more story that they omitted for, potentially the next season. Right.
Correct. Well, I think if you're going to do this Rashomon style storytelling, you kind of have to have more perspectives. I think as we've talked, I redo it all. Right. You'd have to have a good opening that kind of establishes what the mystery is going to be. And maybe that's, you still do the Andor fight and this Sith, dude on some rocks. But then I think I would do kind of like Osha's story up to, I think you do Osha's story up to episode 5, kind of like her as a kid, what she goes through, maybe even some training and failing and becoming the Metnik and, being roped into this murder mystery. And then you go to May and do her version of that for a couple episodes. Her version of the events of that night, going, how she survived and maybe where she came into meeting this master whose face she's never known, but she's been trained by him. So she must have known him for a while. So like get some history there and develop her character more, and then go to Soul for the third perspective and like what the events of that night leading up to the fight with Qimir, and then kind of continue there. And, then you get rid of the episode where it's a whole flashback and we just kind of see it develop. Yeah. To me, a little bit more interesting. We get to know the characters and we're trying to understand how it all fits together and what is the true events of that night, because you would probably show May watching Soul stab, her mother, but it would be from a much more loving perspective. Because if you notice, like when we see the kids with Mother Coral, she's very loving and protective and just like trying to get them back to safety. But from Soul's perspective, it's almost harsh and angry.
Right.
So that's where you want to have that differing perspective. So you don't know what is true and what's not, because Soul's going to have that perspective of these kids are in trouble and in danger. And I'm the one that has to save them because I can feel it. Osha's meant to be my Padawan.
Yeah, that was really heavy-handed.
It was awkward, but it also kind of shows his instability and like how he's being influenced and like how, like the whole thing I did think did a great job of showing us how Jedi are just, they kidnap kids, take them into war zones, and then be like, oh no, surprise Pikachu face, they get killed. Or they can't control their emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it did a great job of that.
It did. Obviously, his judgment was very clouded, and yeah. So, would you extend that out? Like, instead of 8 episodes, would you make it more like 15, 16 episodes?
I don't know if I could go 15, 16, but I would definitely go 10 to 12, maybe. I mean,
Okay.
It requires some good plotting stuff, but I would try and do kind of like Andor did, like 3 episode arcs for each character. And like there'd be some crossover events and some not, because you want to show things from different perspectives. And I think it'd be really interesting to see like their lives through each of their perspectives, getting up to the Kelnaka fight. So I think that would just be kind of the point I would want it all to kind of converge and then go together from a reliable narrator. So that's probably, you'd have 9 episodes to get to that point, and then 2 to 3 to kind of finish it out.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm with that. I like that outline a bit better than obviously what we witnessed. And you know, for me, I would agree too that expanding it out, I think that having it open with a bit more of Osha's history, building upon that, and then giving us a little bit of a pullback, and then starting with May, but then kind of bringing in everything that happened with Soul and the others. Unfortunately, a lot of what I want to change centers around just mostly the poor writing in various spots. And I'm not just saying because of the death of, of a few Jedi. You're right. You know what? At the time I was really upset about it. When you say it like that and you're like, yeah, well, Jackie and Yor died because they were loose ends, and you can't exactly ignore the canon of we haven't heard about Sith in 1,000 years. You can't ignore that. So I'll relent on that.
Well, you could, but then you have to change something. So I think and the direction I would go is I like this idea of he's calling himself something that's an analog to a Sith, not actually a Sith, but he uses that to kind of describe who he is.
Right.
Just because it also gives us context of understanding him a bit more without him going into some like, I'm some dark gray Jedi or something that we have most people who are probably watching like mostly live action stuff are going to have no context for it. But if the fandom will perfectly understand what a gray Jedi is and how that might play into stuff. But allowing him to be like, I'm what you might call a Sith, or however he phrases it, at least gives most viewers, okay, so he's a Sith and bad guy. Great, let's go for it.
Right.
And then we can develop that as we go further.
Right. So, yeah, there would be some things that would have to get retconned. You can't exactly retcon the main storyline of Star Wars at this point. Like it's solidified, and we learn in episode 1 that Sith haven't been seen or heard from for over 1,000 years. So it's like, all right, can't really mess with that too much. So moving ahead with that, the things that I felt could have been handled differently, and again, it still feels loose endy, but I was really disappointed with the way that Osha finishes off Soul. She literally tells him to stop talking while she force chokes him. He's not even getting the opportunity to say anything anymore. He's choking. And that's it. And May, moments before that, said, I want him to stand trial. I want him to deal with the repercussions of what he's done.
Yeah.
And then she just fucking kills him. And I get it. It's still a loose end, but
it is. Well, I would argue it's not. Yes, go. But get your butt out.
Yeah. You know what I'm gonna say. You know what I'm gonna say.
Just say it.
Memory wipe.
Yeah, that was garbage.
The biggest Now, it's a real force power, but I do think that part of the stipulation of it is that it has to be a willing participant. Like, you have to be willing for your mind to be wiped in order for it to work. Otherwise, and she was, yes, May was. I'm thinking about the other characters that could have had their memories wiped in order for the whole Sith concept of like not knowing about them to still exist, right? That could have been a thing. Now, there's nothing out there that has specifically stated that I have found that it has to be a willing participant. However, that's my assumption, is that that would be really the only thing that makes sense in my mind in order to make that work. And there was a lot of direction that I think the story could have better served with more history, and I don't think that it makes sense for it all to be pushed into season 2, because the biggest reason for Darth Plagueis is the Virgins. That's his whole thing. A very small detail that was noticed in the very last episode was when Sol was describing to Osha the fact that her and May were created through a Virgins, was a small uptick. You notice that Qimir just kind of goes, like he perks up. And then we get the reveal of Plagueis just a little bit after that. And so to me, that alludes to the idea, was Plagueis earlier?
Plagueis was much earlier. Plagueis is watching them as they leave the planet to go to Brundok.
Okay.
Like towards the very beginning of the episode.
Was that at the beginning? Oh, yes. Yeah, because the big reveal was at the end too. That's right. They did Plagueis at the beginning, Yoda at the end.
Yep.
So, but even still, it still lines up. It's the fact that Plagueis's whole purpose as a Sith Lord is he wants immortality. And it's later mentioned in, I think, episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, that Palpatine tells Anakin that Plagueis was able to create life.
Are you talking about the tale of Plagueis the Wise?
I guess. Was that the story that was told in episode 3? God, I haven't seen episode 3 in so long. I couldn't tell you other than the fact that I do remember that's part of like Plagueis's mention, you know.
It's also it's a heavily referenced meme.
Oh, is it?
Yes. The tale of Plagueis the Wise.
Yeah, I guess I'm not familiar with the meme. But I mean, that is the whole, like, I think that's the reason that he is there as well, is that he's in search of this force ability that they want to study so badly, because it had the ability to create life itself. And that was Plagueis' whole deal, was wanting to be immortal. So if he is indeed kind of the standing in master of Qimir, I guess we'll see. But like, I think having the whole discussion of Virgins or Virgins, they say it with an A in front of it every time, and I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's just Virgins.
It's just Virgins.
Yeah, but they keep saying
Vergence, I believe.
Right. And so anyway, that was a big part of a reveal that I felt like it just, you know, what if it carries into season 2, it's just like there's a lot of things that are going to be going on there. And we've already got everything going on with Venestra. We've got everything going on with Qimir and Osha now. Mm-hmm. May is going to be helping Venestra because she doesn't remember anything. So it's like, okay, what's going to happen with May? And then Plagueis is just randomly there. So it's like, spread it out a little bit more. Give us about 4 more episodes. Flesh things out. I would want to write in a little bit of Venestra and Chimir's background. I would want to write in a little bit of what, you know, you could give us a little more about Darth Plagueis and still keep it a mystery, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like I could write it in that No, you don't think that that you could keep the Plagueis storyline still like?
I agree with some of those points. I mean, definitely more episodes, longer episodes, so we can delve in a bit more. But no, I would keep the reveal, hinting that obviously something's going on. And then, going to season 2, one of the big mysteries is Darth Plagueis and how he ties in. I mean, knowing kind of what I know, the way I would write it is because in the scene in the Coven where they're, doing their chanting and ascending them or whatever, there's one or two figures fully hooded that you don't see who or what they are. I think, and maybe they're doing this, maybe they don't. I would do it this way. Plagueis is one of them, and maybe his master Tenebris is there as well. I think they have a hand in helping the Coven create May and Osha, because Plagueis's whole goal is to cheat death.
Yeah.
And so in creating life through the Force, he's figuring out a way to be able to cheat death and like move his life force into a new body.
Son of a bitch.
So that's the direction I would be going. Like, that's why I would keep it for season 2.
Okay.
I would also I would develop Qimir a little bit more, but I would develop Qimir through the lens of May growing up, meeting him somehow, learning from him, and then being sent on these missions to kill.
Like, how did they even get together to begin with? And
I'm assuming we'll see something, but it's all going to be from Qimir in season 2 because May has had her mind wiped. But I would have liked to see that here because it would be interesting, like this parallel of, and maybe you do a layered story where it's not just one character for a while and then the other character, where you kind of go back and forth of, May and Osha as they are trained up and raised by these two different sects. Who knows how long May's been with Qimir before like being sent on this mission. Maybe it's only been a couple years, but how did she survive to this point then? Like, what has she been up to? She was like 8 years old. So that's why I think would have been better to see that kind of mystery and would have been interesting. And then we get into season 2 where, yes, Plagueis is one of the people that helped create May and Osha in trying to figure out a way to cheat death. And so that's why he's there. That's why he's on the planet, because he's watching Osha. He's probably looking for his apprentice so that way he can take out his master. Because it's always a rule to a Sith. You have a master and apprentice. An apprentice takes a new apprentice and kills his master.
Yep. Oh, you're absolutely right. And there's I actually think the biggest mystery of all right now isn't even Qimir. It's what the hell happened after May escaped, because May explains how she escaped from the Coven after she fell. And from that point until she was old enough to be murdering other Jedi, what went on?
Correct.
That would have been super interesting to understand, when she meets Qimir, because he's, I don't know. Do you think that they're roughly the same age?
No,
I wouldn't think
Qimir?
so. Yeah. He seems older.
Vernestra is something like 100 years old at this point.
God, her species lives for a long time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I would almost hazard Qimir might be like between 60 and 80.
Even if he's just human?
Who knows? I mean, the Force does, I think it's been stated the Force does extend your life. So who knows? Or maybe he's done something. But yeah, I think he's relatively old. I don't think he's like 30 or 40 years old. Okay. I mean, I feel like people would be more aware of like a fallen Jedi or a Padawan that's gone awry and, missing.
Right.
Whereas this is long enough ago. Plus, Vernestra has this whole period in her history where I think she disappeared for a couple of years before she came back to the Jedi Order. Because she's also really fascinating character where she's I think called a wayfinder. I think that's what it is. Where essentially she's just been charged with doing her own thing. She's like, they're just like, yeah, go be you out in the universe, be good, do whatever you feel is the right thing. And then she does that for a while, and then she comes back to the Jedi Order. So, maybe it's during that period that she had this she tried having her own Padawan, and it goes poorly. And so he then fucks off, and she doesn't tell anybody. Maybe that's when that happens, which, puts him at like 80 years old or something.
That could be, because he does say that, like, when he finally felt like he became free was when he lost everything. And if she just abandoned him, he might consider that having lost everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of things to unpack still, but I can't say that there's too much more that I'd try to shift around yet. I'd love to see, if we do get a season 2, I'd love to see where it goes. I don't know. 7 might still be a teensy bit generous.
7? Oh, you'd scale it lower? Well,
somewhere between a 6 and a 7 for me right now. That's where I'm at.
Well, that's fair. I mean, rating isn't important. Yeah, like it's a good enough show. It could have been better, yes, but it also could have been so much fucking worse.
Oh yeah. I mean, to be real, a lot of it was the action that carried it. A lot of those choreographed bits were really, really good.
Outstanding.
And I'm going to trust the process. My final thoughts on this is I'm going to trust the process, because Dave Filoni is basically
he's the CCO.
He's the Lord of Star Wars. He knows anything and everything about Star Wars, to the point of where if he didn't approve of this story, I don't think it would have happened.
I don't know if he would put it that way. I swear I read something recently. But regardless, yes, he is the chief creative officer for Lucasfilms, for Star Wars. He has oversight of everything, working together with all the creators to kind of, plot this course. And he has his own movie coming out. Yeah.
Interesting.
He is directing a live action Star Wars. And his, I believe, is going to be Heir to the Empire, which will be about Thrawn.
Oh, don't tease me with that.
Yeah.
That's going to be cool. Okay. All right. I'm here for it. Yeah. He knows the timelines. He knows all the lore. I swear he knows everything. And I have to I'm just going to say, I'm going to trust that process, because I don't feel like he would just greenlight anything and everything. I think that he would probably, who knows? He's probably already said no to several projects. So the fact that the Acolyte made it through,
right.
No.
Didn't hate it. Think it could be better. I do have hopes for season 2. Yeah. And I hope they go where I would go, because that I think would be really interesting.
If you're right, this will age very nicely.
It will age very well. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll come back in a couple of years and see how it goes.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I think that's all I've got. How about you, sir?
I think that wraps up about all my changes. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied. I really I want to restructure the whole thing, keep some of the main plots, and just tell a better story. Be less mystery box and be more Rashomon or Roshamon. I forget how it's actually pronounced. I think that would be a really interesting concept, especially for Star Wars, seeing all these events from different perspectives and how it just kind of plays out, how the light and the dark, and how it's really kind of probably gray somewhere in the middle.
Well, and you said Andor's that way, right?
Well, Andor is each 3 episodes is an arc.
Is an arc.
And it's not like each arc tells different, or it tells the same story in a different way. It's just a 3-episode arc, and then it kind of goes into the next main story in like little mini series within it.
Yeah. And that's what you're kind of talking about, like how it might have been a better layout.
I think it would have been really, I really enjoyed the way they did that. I think I would have tried to apply that here.
And I'm just going to say there too, this is a situation where the formula was good and they should have stuck with it, because Andor was very well received. Like in the beginning, I think it was a little like people weren't sure, but then it quickly became one of the best.
Agreed.
Like S tier. So, all right, I'll leave it at that. And yeah, thank you for joining us this week on another episode of We're Too Literary.
If you haven't already checked out The Acolyte, definitely give it a watch. Then come back and leave us a comment. Let us know if you agree with our changes, if you think we're off base and it's perfect as is, which, seeing how you fans are, I highly fucking doubt.
Yeah.
Or if you have some ideas of your own you'd like to share.
And don't forget, you can find us on all the major podcast platforms and right here on YouTube. If you're listening in, please give our show a rating. And if you're watching, don't forget to like and subscribe.
We truly appreciate you being here with us, exploring these films and listening to us share our takes.
Thank you so much for tuning in to We're Too Literary this week. I've been your host, Kenny.
And I'm Jonathan.
We'll see you next time.
Bye now.